Let's do it. I can't believe this. What's up guys, welcome to the GC journey. Last video we started prepping the GC8 for the track, so we did things like correcting all sorts of leaks in the car, resealed the oil pan, replaced the sundials, oil seals and O-rings on the gearbox, and added an oil cooler. Did a few more bits and pieces, but those were the main things. And now in this video we're going to finish prepping the GC8 for the track, and next episode I want to start driving the car. I don't want to do any more mods, I want to just drive the car. Well, I will mod the car. I'm probably never gonna finish modding the car, but for this season, I want to enjoy the weather, I want to enjoy the season, and then probably in the summer, start a new project, maybe body and paint. We will see. So what I would like to do in this video, replace the water pump because the one I have on the car is bad. I ordered a new genuine water pump from Subaru. I need to make brackets for the oil cooler, which is currently held in with zip ties. I need to get some kind of ducting for the top mount intercooler. Not sure how I'm going to do that yet, but we'll cross that bridge once we get there, and just do some heat management in the engine bay, put some sleeving on some of the oil lines, specifically those that are close to the headers and turbo and up pipe and all that stuff. I'll probably also redo the lines on the oil cooler because they're too close to the headers. I don't really like it. So there's not too much to do in order for us to get to the point where the GC can start handling track days. So I think the water pump will be the first job that we will do. But before that, I want to raise the car and look underneath. I want to see with my own eyes if the gearbox has stopped leaking, because I don't know how many times, I've lost count. I've literally lost count of how many times I've tried to sort this gearbox oil leak. I hope the solution I've found has sorted this problem for good. If not, I'm really out of ideas. I don't know what else to do. So I'm really hoping, I haven't looked under the car yet. I'm really hoping that when I raise this car and look underneath, everything is going to be dry. And you'll be here to witness this with me. Cross fingers, let's raise the car. Let's see what's going on underneath, and we'll continue from there. Oh man, this is scary. This is scary. Is it recording? Yeah, okay. Should we do it? Let's do it. Let's do it. I can't believe this. Okay, so look, right-hand side is dry. I can't believe it. This is a first for me. I've raised the car, everything is dry. This is a dream come true. Okay, so we're good there. We're good on the right-hand side. Now on the left-hand side, where the axle exits, it's also completely dry. So the oil seal is working, but the O-ring between the gearbox and the sundial, you can, I don't know if you can see this. Can you see? It's like, it's a bit, I don't know if you could call this a leak. You know what? I think for me, we can call this a win. I think I'm going to call this a win. A dry gearbox. Unbelievable. Okay, so I don't know how this video is going to end, but it started really, really well. I'm excited, I'm happy. I can't believe my gearbox is finally not leaking. This is something I've been struggling with for almost 2 years, I think. I've tried to solve this issue so many times unsuccessfully. Now it looks like the gearbox, it's dry. Finally. Still can't believe it. I'm gonna sleep well tonight, I can tell you that. Definitely gonna sleep well. Okay, now that I'm done being amazed by something so trivial like a dry gearbox, it's time to get to work. Starting with the water pump. I drained the coolant into this relatively clean container so I could reuse it. Disconnected both the upper and lower oily radiator hoses, which I should probably replace if you think about it. Removed the I-wire GC to GD radiator adapter and extracted the Phoenix radiator out of the engine bay. Removed both the left and right hand side timing covers, and then moved on to the ATI crank pulley. In order to remove the crank pulley, I first loosened the alternator tensioner and removed the auxiliary belt. Unfortunately, I do not have a dedicated tool for loosening and tightening the crank pulley bolt, since the ATI damper is slightly different from the factory crank pulley, which does have a dedicated tool, so in cases like these, you need to improvise. What I do is place a breaker bar on the crank pulley bolt, lean it against the left-hand side chassis, and give the engine a half-second crank. It will loosen the bolt since the engine turns clockwise, and as a result the breaker bar will turn the bolt anti-clockwise. I hate using these ghetto solutions, but until someone comes up with a tool specific for the ATI crank pulley, there ain't much of a choice. After removing the crank pulley, I could remove the center timing cover. Before removing the timing belt, I made sure the crank trigger wheel and cam gears are all aligned. It will make things a bit easier when going to refit the timing belt. Once everything is aligned, I simply remove the timing belt tensioner, and after that, the timing belt is free to come out. One thing to note, make sure the timing marks haven't worn off the timing belt, otherwise it will be impossible to reinstall. Took some pictures for Instagram, always take pictures for Instagram, removed this toothed idle bearing, removed the 2 water pump hoses, and removed the faulty water pump. Transferred this rubber thing from the old water pump to the new one, and went on to installing the new OEM water pump. I don't know exactly why I struggled so much with fitting this new water pump, but I can tell you that there was a lot of swearing involved. Once the water pump was installed, I could refit the timing belt, and then I discovered a new problem. How surprising. So I've noticed a problem. The belt was touching the Fuji Racing belt guide because the RCM eccentric idle bearing, it was rotated to the left, and so the angle the belt was coming from this bearing was in a way that it was making contact with this belt guide. Now the thing is, after playing with the eccentric bearing so that the belt and the guide don't make contact, and now everything is completely out of their marks. Completely. So first of all, these things really make a difference. So that's a good thing. But now everything is now so far off that I'm thinking maybe now, if I do timing again, I take the belt off and refit it, maybe now everything will be in place, I'm hoping. The belt rotating this way, you need to make sure it does not rotate, it does not want to rotate the bearing counterclockwise, because then it might loosen it, which means maybe this is not a good idea to have it this way. See, I don't know about this either. Another option is to rotate them back to the way they were when everything was perfect and run without a belt guide for now. Is that even an option? Is that a smart thing to do? Don't think so. Okay, I'll remove the belt and reapply it and see maybe now everything's in place. If not, I'll need to rotate these back to where they were and then just run without the belt guide till I can replace this one with the factory one, and then the angle that the belt reaches the crank trigger wheel should be in the proper angle. You realize if I do timing again and everything is still out of place completely, then I will need to alter these. Oh, not too bad then. Not too bad, but needs to be done. What a day. This is 2025. Oh, it's getting late. I'm afraid I'm going to start making mistakes. Okay, everything is torqued down, right? Right. So let's get everything back in there. Bloody marks. We'll do this thing again, which I absolutely hate. Yes. Fun, fun, fun. See, a second ago, when I had to do this, it all went smooth. And now, everything is just not working at all. I don't know why, just don't know why. But this is not fun. This is not fun for me. It's not fun for anyone. Okay, so I did timing again. Everything was way off. So I put these idle bearings back where they were. Now, after rotating the engine 720 degrees, everything is lined so well, really, really so well, that I don't want to play with these anymore. I want to leave them as they are. But what this means is that I can't run the timing guide at the moment because it's making contact. So I need to see what I do, because it's probably really, really dangerous to run an engine without a time belt guide. Could easily skip a tooth, and we do not want that. I'll need to see what kind of solution I can find for this problem. If you have any ideas, please let me know. But for now, I'm gonna put everything back together, and I think we'll call it a day, because it's late. The card on my camera is almost full, and oh, thought that was Loctite, but it's not, it's blood. My blood. Anyway, so I'll quickly throw everything back together and we'll carry on in the next day. So, Moving on to the oil cooler. I'm not 100% certain you need to remove the bumper to do this job, but it makes things so much easier since everything becomes easily accessible that in my opinion, it's definitely worth the trouble. Also, would have been much easier to remove the cooler without touching the radiator if I had simply removed the bumper bar as well, which looking at this footage now, I can't really tell you what I was thinking. It's only 4 bolts. Anyway, moving on. I've never tried making any type of bracket before, so this was going to be a very valuable learning experience for me. I took some 2mm sheet metal, marked the shape of the 2 brackets I wanted to make for each side of the oil cooler, chopped them up with a grinder which I do not have much experience with either, and started cleaning them up a bit with a sanding belt. This works much quicker and easier using a grinder with a flap disc, but this is something that future me has yet to discover, so for now, sand belt it is. Idiot. After cleaning up the metal, bent the 2 pieces into the shape I wanted, which required being a little creative, placed the cooler on the bracket, marked where I wanted to drill the 2 holes, and went on to drilling. Started with a small hole, worked my way up to a larger size, and once the hole was large enough to accept an insert, went on to adding these 6mm inserts. Disappointed with the outcome and having run out of time, I forgot to film myself trying to fit the cooler back into place, but the result was that the cooler didn't really fit without making contact with the chassis, and I would prefer to modify the chassis as little as possible if I can help it. So, defeated, the zip ties went back on, and off home I went in shame. After 2 weeks of staring at different oil cooler setups online, I decided to give it another go. This time decided to make one bracket that would mount the cooler in the vertical position. So, same principle, 2mm sheet metal, marked the shape and size I thought would do the job, choppy angle grinder, clean up with flap disc since I'm not an idiot this time, bend shape into place with hammer, drill 2 holes in the lower support beam, added 2 inserts, and here's what I ended up with. Mounting bracket with 2 strips of foam added to the bottom side, mounted into place, oil cooler bolted to mounting bracket at the bottom, and temporarily held with a zip tie at the top. Unhappy with the way the oil cooler lines were routed, I decided to make new ones. So now, on to the next job. So since there's not enough room to have the adapter oriented straight like it's supposed to, because there's not enough clearance between the engine and the fans, so I didn't like it going 90 degrees, it was way too close to the exhaust manifold collector. So best solution I could find is having it oriented at like almost 45 degrees. And that way I can get 190 in here and one straight over here. The 90 degree will be far enough from the exhaust manifold and the straight will be just above the collector, but again, it's only this area that will be close to the exhaust manifold and not the lines that were running right next to it. Much better solution. And on top of that, of course, I will add heat sleeve onto the hoses. One thing to note, this side feeds the oil cooler and this side is the return for the oil cooler. So if it matters to you, the direction of flow in the cooler, in the oil cooler itself, so just know that this side feeds the oil cooler and this side is the return. I'm not going to tighten anything down right now. I will just start mocking everything up, measuring, making the PTFE-10 lines. Once the lines are fitted, I'll go ahead and start torquing everything down. Right then, making PTFE braided lines ain't something you've never seen before, so let's run through this quickly, shall we? First, I loosely attached the hose end fittings onto the oil cooler so I could get an idea of the hose length I would need. I went with a 45 degree on the top and a straight on the bottom. For these fittings and PTFE braided hose, I went with a company called ProSpeed Parts. They are based in Malta, a real pleasure to deal with, and their parts seem like they are really nice quality, so thought I would give them a try. I wanted to start with the oil feed line, so install the 90 degree fitting that goes to the sandwich adapter plate onto the hose, attached the 90 degree fitting to the adapter, and ran the line to the oil cooler. After taking my measurement, cut the hose to length and went on to installing the straight fitting. When installing hose end fittings on PTFE lines, you need to first slide the bottom part of the fitting onto the hose, insert the olive onto the inner PTFE hose, make sure the hose is sitting flush inside the olive, press in the top part of the fitting, and then bring the bottom part of the fitting to thread onto the top part. You will need to make sure you do not get any of the outer braid caught between the two parts of the fitting when going to thread them together. Otherwise, you could ruin the fitting and then have to order a new one because you don't just keep extra fittings laying around. What are you, a bloody millionaire? Then of course you need to wait for the new fitting to arrive all the way from Malta, and during that time you're waiting, think to yourself, I could have finished the job and uploaded this video ages ago. Ask me how I know. So this is what I have so far. I have a 45 on the return. Let's start with the feed actually. So there's a 90 over here on the right. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah. So this is the feed, goes up. I didn't want to get too sharp of a bend in the hose, so it's a bit longer than I would have liked it. Not very pretty, but we'll get the job done, and it's far away from the headers, which is the most important part. Now here, this is the feed. I've seen 1,000,001 comments saying that you should feed from the top and let the oil drop down, or you should feed from the bottom, let the oil go all through, force it through the cooler and return from the top. So haven't seen anything definite, so I decided to feed from the bottom. So this is the feed, then it goes through the cooler. I have a 45 on the return, and the return is much shorter. You can see it clears, it doesn't touch it, doesn't make contact with anything. Doesn't touch the radiator, doesn't touch the body, the chassis, and it's a rather short line. Goes into the straight. That's the return. Then it drops from down here into the filter and then back into the engine from the center. So I'll just disassemble the lines, put some heat sleeve on them, and then I will put them back on for good, hopefully. Okay, so now that we're done with the oil cooler, way happier with the way the lines are routed. What I would like to do now is replace the sweaty Samco radiator hoses. These radiator ones seem to be oily, sweaty all the time. Not exactly sure why, but in any case, what I want to try and do is just replace them with a different brand. Maybe I'll be luckier this time. So what I went with are these Fuji Racing upper and lower radiator hoses. Another brand made in the UK. We will see if I have better luck with these hoses. Because I don't feel like dropping all the coolant now, I think what I will do is replace the upper hose only. Give it like a week, maybe 2, make sure it doesn't start sweating. If this one's good, then I'll make an effort, I'll drop the coolant and I'll replace also the lower radiator hose. So let's go. Yes, well, what do you want me to say? I'm replacing a brand new, not cheap by any means, Samco radiator hose. When experiencing moments like these in life, one must ask himself, what have I done to piss God off so much? Is it because I'm Jewish and my wife is Christian? Are we disturbing the world's natural balance? Anyway, hose has been replaced. Let's take a week off, drive the car for a bit and see what happens. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one. Cheers!